here's the thing that's so bizarre about it, Natasha. They're the most wooden literalists when they read the Bible if they're wanting to disprove it.
Let's go on to the next idea. And this one we should have even started with because it's kind of the foundation for so much of what we're talking about. But here's how I'd summarize the idea. The Bible has some good stuff and lots of bad stuff. We need to sift through it to determine what is good. So I'm just gonna read this quote because I think this summarizes it so well. He says, "I'm reminding people that to one degree or another, all Christians create a personal redacted Bible. I'm showing them that we can't simply believe or not believe the totality of Scripture. It's intellectually dishonest. We all have to sift through it and interpret it and try to apply it as best we can on a moment by moment basis, given what we learn and what we experience. Ultimately, I return to the question, is this passage consistent with the character of a God who is infinite love? And I rest in the conclusion I come to." So this is a fascinating quote, I think, because my new book, Faithfully Different, ultimately is so much about what's your source of authority. Is your source of authority God through his inspired word, or is your source of authority yourself? And I make the case in chapter 5 of the book that ultimately progressive Christians have a very secular view of the world because they do resort to the authority of the self. Yes, they may have more appreciation for Jesus in some sense than people who are purely irreligious, but it comes back to the authority of me, that I'm the final arbiter of truth. And I might use the Bible in some way, but I'm the one who is going to pick and choose. And I think that is so telling. This question he asked at the end, I'm going to come back to, is this passage consistent with the character of a God who is infinite love? And he comes to the conclusion, he rests in the conclusion that he comes to. So it's not, I want to come to what is actually being taught here. I want to come to what is true about reality. It is, what am I concluding through the filter I've defined in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
The Bible doesn't tell us to filter everything through one characteristic of God. Is this consistent with a God who is love? The Bible is going to be consistent with a God who is loving and just and holy and all-knowing and all-powerful and all of these other things as well. So he is the one who has set up his own filter for Scripture, consistent with the authority of the self. He's pushing everything through that filter, and then he's determining and making the conclusion. Now, we all make conclusions from what we read, so there's nothing overly shocking about that. Of course, we all are. But it starts with your view of the Bible. And in talking today about the difference between having a biblical worldview and having a more progressive view, it comes down so much to this. What is your starting point for what you believe the Bible to be?
Mm-hmm.
And from that place, if you believe the Bible to be the authoritative word of God, yes, Christians are going to have some different interpretations on some parts and some different views. We don't deny that. But your starting point is so important. And clearly, his starting point is not, that's what the Bible is. In his worldview, that's definitely not what the Bible is. And so now I'm going to pick the attribute of God that I think, based on my own perspective and subjective definitions here, and then I'm going to filter everything through it. So Alisa, this whole idea that he talks about with, you can't just believe or not believe the totality of Scripture. We all have to sift through it because we're all coming to these different conclusions. How would you respond to that? How would you explain to someone listening who's thinking, well, yeah, but we do kind of have to look and we all make interpretations of this or that. How is that different than when he's saying you can't just believe or disbelieve the totality of Scripture?
Yeah, that's such a puzzling line to me when he even says that's intellectually dishonest to say that. And I think my hunch is from reading him what he means. And honestly, I'm going to even swing broader and take a look at the broader progressive Christian movement and even the deconstruction movement. There is a definite theme threaded throughout those movements, which have lots of overlap, that Scripture is morally dubious, and they will post every verse they think is morally dubious on Twitter and on all these different social media platforms. But here's the thing that's so bizarre about it, Natasha. They're the most wooden literalists when they read the Bible if they're wanting to disprove it. In one hand, he's saying we have to hold these things lightly. We have to recognize when there's figures of speech. We have to recognize different things about it. But when he wants to use it as a weapon, it is literal. And if we don't believe the literal interpretation, if we don't believe, this is an exaggeration, but if we don't believe Jesus is a physical door because he said I'm a door, then you're not a literal. Then you just have to let it all go. And it's really kind of silly to me because I can easily and with total intellectual honesty say that I believe the totality of Scripture. But in saying that, I'm not saying I fully understand the totality of Scripture or that my interpretation of every verse in the totality of Scripture is the correct one. But my goal as a Bible-believing Christian should be to keep working, grammar, hermeneutics, to try to get to the author's intent, to conform what I think to what the Bible is actually teaching. Now, none of us are going to be perfect at that, but I think it's intellectually dishonest, frankly, to say that you can't say you believe in the totality of Scripture if you don't see it exactly how he does. It's kind of what he's doing. He's saying, if you don't see Scripture as I do, then you're being intellectually dishonest to say you don't believe in its totality. And I call foul on that. I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's true. And there's just this real simplistic, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't know if he really has this simplistic of a view, but it's what he's putting forward in his book, is that he has this very simplistic view of what Christians think the Bible is. And it's a little bit puzzling because, you could pick up Wayne Grudem, pick up any conservative systematic theology and just go through the bibliology section. And it's not that controversial to say that, yes, God is ineffable. We can't fully comprehend him. Language we use about God is going to be analogous because we are limited with our vocabulary. We're limited with our intelligence. God is God and we are not. We are fine with mystery where there's mystery. The Scripture leaves some things mysterious. We're good. We're cool with that. But there are some things that are a lot more clear. So why would we assign mystery to a part that's clear? This is such basic stuff. It's really hard to understand what he's doing here, if I'm honest.